where do you think we need to go as a movement next to bring especially the truth about 9/11 out to the public? You obviously are doing it through your music.
Yeah, I think that sometimes people hear messages in my music such as the cause of death, and they hear a song like Bin Laden. And I think that while Green Lantern made the hook to be as incendiary as possible, I've always stated that I never thought that George Bush was personally responsible for 9/11. I think that he's just a puppet that is used by individuals like the military-industrial complex. And I don't think that's like a left-wing conspiracy theory nut thing to say, because that has happened in the past so often with other governments and with our own government. I think whether or not people find it feasible that the American government would do this to their own people, and regardless of that issue, people can have, angry emotions about that, or they can have very adamant stances about how that is impossible. But the truth of the matter is that the majority of the American population doesn't believe the government's version of the exact things that transpired on September 11, 2001. They don't believe it, and it says a lot about the state of the nation and the amount of trust that we have in our own government. The fact that people just don't believe that they're telling the whole truth and nothing but the truth. They feel like they're leaving out specific issues that would come back to haunt them for things that they've done in the past, or partnerships that they continue to have now around the world. We talk about building democracies in the Middle East, and yet, the only democracies are what? Lebanon and Israel, that's it. Everybody else is the ultimate form of an oligarchy, a monarchy. And during the 60s and 70s, the United States and Europe was instrumental in eliminating the left wing from the Middle East. In other words, everything that resembled socialism, everything that resembled that politically organizing faction of Middle Eastern politics was pretty much genocided, a political genocide. People removed, forcibly thrown out, whether it was from Iraq, Iran, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, whatever it may be, Algeria. And we find that in that power vacuum is when the rise of radical Islam comes. True. The people have no other way to turn. They have their leaders that claim to be related to the Prophet Muhammad, or claim to have some sort of sanctity. The entire issue behind monarchy is that God designated someone to rule. God deemed that this family line would control the lives of all these other people. And people have never seen that, and they don't see those rulers acting godly. They don't see them being pious. They don't see them being merciful. They don't see them as the representation of God, so they rebel against them. And the people that are doing that now happen to do that through a religious channel. So automatically that's sought after and demonized throughout the world as terrorism. But to me, I've always thought terrorism is the wrong answer to the right question. It's like advertising. If it didn't work, then so many people wouldn't be involved in it. You can strike fear into somebody's heart. You can make them do a lot of crazy things. You can make them release hostages. You can make them meet your demands, or you can make them give up their civil liberties and pretend that nothing's going on in their country.
I guess a lot of people don't. I see it as, do you think that maybe, and it's not saying just our government did it, but 9/11 was used and everything since invading, occupying forces like Iraq, Afghanistan, possibly Iran now, that maybe as America we are being set up right now to be the bad guy? And that maybe something like World War II might happen eventually here if we don't?
I think that there are world powers that, definitely the power structure of the world has shifted several times. From Rome to Germany to the Caliphate to the Byzantine Empire, whatever it may be, back and forth to the Turks, then to the Napoleonic age where France dominated, afterwards, or during that entire time, the British Empire, which it was said was so large the sun never set on it. Now, the American Empire, the American interest. Next is what? China's economic domination. As far as America being the bad guy, I think that, we can't sit here and blame America for all the problems in the world. I think that we enable that a lot, and that we find people that are willing to be devils for us in other parts of the world. We need a Saddam Hussein. We need to create a Manuel Noriega, which are individuals who ironically not only betray their own people, but betray themselves ideologically when they come work for us. After all, Manuel Noriega was an ardent communist when he first started. Saddam Hussein was part of a left-wing faction of military officers until he realized, hey, there ain't no money in this. There's money with America, there's money with the CIA, there's money making war with Iran. You know what I mean? A stalemate to drain their economy down so that they can't implement, you know what I mean, these Russian ideals that they're getting weapons from, these Russian people that they're not only getting logistical help, but also, military aid from. So I think they're intrinsically connected. The imperial ambitions of this nation and the state of the world. But I don't think that, I don't think it's the end-all be-all to empires, After the American Empire, I'm sure there'll be another one, and there'll be another one. And what will be best remembered for, hopefully, is, in the future, building a greater understanding of what democracy is by watching the way that it failed here in America. Because I think that when we look at democracy as being voting 25 times every century, we're missing the point. Democracy are the institutions that protect the civil liberties of the people. That's what we vote for. That's what we're supposed to create. That's what we're supposed to protect. And right now, that's being sacrificed for. People are still trying to figure that out. They say there's a war, but who's the war against? We were friends with the Taliban before.
Sure.
We were buddies with them only a year earlier. And I think it's interesting to note the ideological contradictions in the people that we do business with. People that are willing not only to betray themselves and to betray their religious doctrine, but also to go against, historically speaking, what continues to this very day to dominate, issues around the world, and that's the issue of control. Man has no control, or has this dilemma in himself of whether he controls his own destiny. If he does all these things, if God exists, then doesn't the mind of God provide for infinite amounts of endings to whatever we do, based on the small, tiny, almost insignificant choices that we make every single day that exponentially send out ripples in time to create, new possibilities? I mean, then what choices is everything that we make already pre-written and put down in some way, shape, or form? And to overcompensate for not understanding whether we have that direct choice, whether it is truly our destiny that we decide, or if our destiny's already been preordained, we try to conquer other things because we can't conquer ourselves. We try to conquer other people, we try to make them assimilate, we conquer other religions, we conquer our own women, we conquer our own brothers. And in the end, it's the inability to conquer ourselves that drives us to do all this.
Very true. Well, I guess I'm not the best interviewer, right?
No, it's all right, man. I talk a lot, so y'all good, man. Thanks a lot for having me. Immortal Technique, myspace.com/Immortal Technique, Vital Records. The Third World in stores now. Peace.
Humanity's gone, smoked up in a gravity bong by a Democrat, Republican, Cheech and Chong. Immortal Technique, you never heard me preaching a song. I'm not controversial, I'm just speaking